Hello, everyone. Me, Ashley. We are here to do a story of hope for you guys. And it's just such an honor to me that, Ashley's been a client for years now at this point, right? 4 years we worked together.
Yeah.
And she worked closely with Heather in our Nyack location for those 4 years. And I would see you once a month when I came into the Nyack office. And now I haven't seen her in 8 or 9 months because she's been, I missed you. That's right. We missed each other right before you were going to give birth. But I haven't seen you in like 7.5 months because you've been busy at home with your baby girl.
Yes. Yeah.
So I like to just, have everybody hear your story in your words. So go ahead, share.
Yeah.
I'll jump in as I remember things.
Yeah. I mean, it was a long journey. I mean, I started just kind of casually and naturally. And then I think about a year in, we were like, okay, well, maybe we should kind of get a little, do some more testing. And there wasn't anything wrong, right? Like nothing ever came up.
How old were you? You started trying to conceive what were you?
33.
Yeah, 33. Okay.
Yeah. And I kept, my husband was tested. I was tested. We kind of did all the due diligence, but everything kept coming back normal. But it was frustrating and I never got any answers. And I was trying, then I kind of was trying different like meditations and trying, anything and everything, basically like supplements, spiritual things. I was reaching out to different like non-invasive specialists because I was not ready to try anything like IUI or IVF. I think I felt like I'm a very holistic person. So I had like, not a stigma. Well, maybe, yeah, I had kind of a stigma. Like I just felt like, oh, I can't do that. It's not natural.
Not natural, right?
Yes. So I just really was so resistant to trying anything like fertility related with a conventional medicine. So anyway, we keep trying. I did fix some health things that I found. And then I was recommended Aimee. And I just was kind of blown away by like how thorough you were and the blood work that you did. And also just how like emotionally supportive you were. And I felt like, okay, I'm gonna get somewhere. Like I'm finally gonna get some answers and really somebody who's going to look at my case and look at it holistically. And
was at the time when you came to of like you had been digging and like did you find what were some things that you found that were maybe off that could have been reason for the fertility challenges at that point?
Well, I did find that I had something called endometritis, which is an imbalance in the uterine microbiome. And
she discovered that before our work together and kind of before it was as popular as it is now, right? The testing now is really well known that we're doing that.
Yeah, because that was like something that I was told could possibly be, but also probably not. So, but I was like, well, that kind of seems like that would be a big deal. And for me, actually antibiotics didn't work. I ended up taking a supplement called Utrophin.
By standard process, right? Standard process
at the recommendation of a doctor who specializes. Dr. Josh Cantor in New York City. Yeah. So I saw someone, I didn't just kind of get it off the shelf. I did.
But I think it's pretty similar to what's like there's some things recommended now, like Thorne makes one too. It's like undecynolinic acid. It's about, there are essential fatty acids that are specific, but I think Utrophin also has uterine tissue in it. I think it's actually like an organ meat blend as well. But it's interesting of like, there's more products out there now. And basically the premise is to support a healthy uterine microbiome.
Yeah.
But Ashley discovered that she had the endometritis before coming to work with us. And then you treated it, right? Because to the best of your knowledge, I mean,
Yeah. I did end up getting rebiopsied a few times. And then once I did the Utrophin, it cleared it out. So, that was pretty amazing. And then, so I was working with you and I think I just was feeling like at this point we're reaching about I don't know, 3 years, maybe. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
One
at this
second.
point, you're 36. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, my dog.
Okay, and remind me too, didn't thyroid, how was thyroid when we checked that and vitamin D levels?
Vitamin D was a little bit low. Thyroid was a little bit hypothyroid.
Yeah,
But
that's what I remember.
yeah, so we basically the majority of my work with you was really just getting my my hormonal profile and my nutritional profile into this really optimal place.
Yeah.
And we were able to achieve that with all of the like amazing research and protocols and supplementation and acupuncture, like clinic work
Yeah.
that the Aimee and Heather did with me. And they were so, patient and thorough. But even with all of that, I just kept and then testing, and testing my ovulation. And I would go on breaks too, where I would say like, hey, I'm just gonna let go and not be so rigid and see if that helps. But because there's always that, you get told if you just relax, you'll get pregnant, which is the worst thing to
What's
ever
it
say
say?
to anyone who's experiencing fertility struggles, by the way. And it had just been a long time. And I thought, let me rethink my opinions about something like IUI or seeing a doctor at RMA. I'd had one instance earlier that just wasn't a positive experience, but I really trusted Aimee and I asked her if there was someone she recommended. And she did. Her name was Dr. Laura Meyer at RMA in Connecticut, which is now Illum Fertility.
Yeah.
And when I spoke to her, I just felt this like real connection. And I was like, oh, I really like this woman. I feel like she's going to really care for my case. And we talked through a lot of different options. And what I found out, which thankfully I did see her, was that I had polyps that had been undetected probably the whole time, but they were in this very specific place in my uterus that wouldn't have been seen by the regular sonogram technology.
That's it. You needed the hysteroscopy to actually see it, right? And that's always the argument I make, that like saline, and this I learned from fertility doctors, that saline sonos can miss things.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases they can, and the things that they miss could be the reason for the fertility challenges or implantation issues at the minimum.
Yeah, and they won't do implantation if you have polyps. So I had to get those removed, which, it's interesting. It's like, had I found that out at 33, I probably would have just continued to try naturally. And like maybe that would have been the thing.
The trick. The endometritis and the polyps, those two things combined could have been the reasons for the delay, 100%.
Oh, absolutely. And again, these were very it took a long time to get there. The technology and the research hadn't really caught up to those things yet. So, and I also just want to say at this point, years in, it takes such an emotional and mental toll. Like I really just felt this pain, that's just it's indescribable. I mean, I think everyone on this caller who's going to listen understands the just anxiety and how consuming it is. And I just felt, with Dr. Meyer and Aimee, I kind of just felt like, okay, you know what? Because of all the work I've done with Aimee and because I'm in this really optimal place hormonally and nutritionally, and then my doctor said, if you do try an IVF cycle and if you do the genetic testing, you have a 70% chance of that embryo becoming a baby. And I said, you know what? Let's do it.
Because you did how many IUIs?
I did 2 IUIs.
And we did polyp surgery first, then IUIs?
Yeah, polyp surgery first, and then 2 IUIs that didn't take.
Yeah.
And then, I took some time off.
Yeah.
And then I decided that 4 years in, it was time.
Let's do it. I remember us talking about it and just like, what do we have to lose? Let's just do it.
Yeah. And, it's such an individual decision.
Yeah.
It's an investment. Yeah. I mean, listen, I changed health insurances. I took out a credit card. We did all the things, and it was still, all the things. It's a huge commitment.
Yeah.
And I just, the only thing I'll say is that I'm so glad that I got out of my own way in regards to that. And I let go this idea that I had to do it naturally. I had to do that, you know, because really I just needed the support to
Yeah.
become a mom, you
Mhm.
know, and
Okay.
I was able to have a really successful IVF transfer with 3 embryos. I only ever had to do 1 round of IVF, and I really
Yeah,
believe.
what did we get? So let's go through it. You did 1 round, you got how many eggs collected?
Um, I think I got 15, and then there were 11 that
Plus.
in the next phase, which I
Yeah,
forgot.
it's okay.
And then there was
And
only
how many were sent off for testing?
uh,
Think, I
5,
I think 5 and 3 came back
and
normal.
3 came
Which are
back.
very high odds. That's more
No,
than
you know what? It was only 3 that came back that were sent for testing, but all 3
came
came
back
back
normal.
normal.
That's what it was, 100%. Wow,
Yes,
100%.
100%. And then my first transfer didn't take because my meds were not correct. Um,
Yeah, there
again,
was a progesterone like,
yeah,
mismatch. Yeah.
the progesterone was too low. And then the second transfer, it took.
Yeah,
And it's funny because I knew when I was in that room and they you know, they put the little, you can see it go in basically. They give you like a screen you can watch. And I just knew. I knew it was this magical moment where I looked at it and I said, that's my daughter. I didn't know it was a girl, but I knew, you know, and I just knew. I was like, this is good. This is it. This is it. And then 2 weeks later, I had a cup of coffee in the morning and I immediately threw up. And then later that day, you know, my doctor called me and I was like in bed feeling like crap.
Yeah.
And she said, you're pregnant. And I
Yeah.
just like burst into tears.
And the pregnancy for you, overall was.
Yes, I had a pretty strong immune reaction first, which I like with which Aimee helped me with right away. So we just nipped anything in the bud, but it was just my body adjusting my blood levels. I got them tested. I was so nervous.
Yeah, and what was the reaction you felt immune wise?
I just basically had like everything was coming out, like of all places,
Places,
not to be too
vomiting,
graphic.
diarrhea, right? Yeah,
I
and
was just like, my body was like, what?
really reacting strongly. Yeah,
Yes. But it was, you know, it took, and the levels doubled and kept
yeah,
doubling.
exactly. Your beta kept going up, and your progesterone looked good.
Yes.
We always check your thyroid, vitamin D, all that stayed in good, healthy range.
Yes. And
Um,
I really had a very like healthy pregnancy. I think the hardest part was just like the anxiety and the mental and emotional toll from going so many years of feeling like I'm never going to become a mom. This isn't going to happen. And then you're pregnant, and then it just feels like the stakes feel so high,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and talk about that. Like, when did you really come into it where, I don't know, I guess where you really started to own the fact that this was going to work for you?
Um, honestly, probably not until about 6 months.
Yeah.
There was a real shift. And then I got nervous again at the end because you're doing the kick counting, which can be very anxiety inducing. And I think there has to be a lot more kind of trauma informed care for people
100%.
that go through a lot of infertility and then get pregnant. For me, it was a very challenging shift because it just felt like this really intense experience leading to this really intense experience. And it's a big mind shift to go from hearing no, 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 no to all of a sudden being pregnant. And it feels like this very fragile thing, you know, for a while. So, and I think in the best case scenario, a lot of women say they feel like scared during pregnancy. So I just think that's something that has to be talked about a lot.
100%. The trauma is real, because I think that's exactly it. You've been in one group for so long, that the fertility challenge group, and then all of a sudden you're pregnant. And I think the information out there makes you feel like, oh, the second I get pregnant, the trauma goes away and I'm just as happy as I can be. And it's like, not really. I mean, the fears and the triggers are really there, and the anxiety really kicks in of like, okay, now what? Like, what if I lose it now? What if, Or just you're, like you said, you're just so used to something being wrong that now all of a sudden you're in this place where everything's right or working out well.
Yeah.
And it's very scary. The stakes are really high.
Yeah. And it really, it took me a long time, and I don't know that I ever, I mean, I settled in, like I said, around 6 months, there was a real, like a shift, but, luckily she was a rock star the whole time in there, and, was just such a gymnast. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Thank
a
you.
really intense experience. And, I had a great birth, and I felt like I recovered really well, in my postpartum. And the one thing I'll say though about being a mom, being on the other side of it, is I do feel like that struggle has made me a great mom, because I don't take anything for granted. Like
Yeah.
even little things, like when I'm struggling to get the stroller out of the car, or I'm just, pushing her down the street to get coffee, like those little things that I'm not saying that they're not special for everybody, but for me, they just feel so special. And it really has given me the silver lining, is I feel like it's made me really, really, really appreciate being a mom.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. And a lot of those feelings of trauma, they did go away.
Yeah.
They really naturally subsided. And I think, I did try to do a lot of work on it. And at the time you're doing that work and you're in it and you're like, I don't want to do another meditation. I don't want to journal. I don't want to do any of these things, but it does help. It does actually help when you get to the other side of it, and you're like, oh, okay, the work I put in, the effort I put in,
Paying off.
it pays off. And sometimes you don't see that until
Yeah.
you're through it.
Yeah. And I mean, forgive me for asking this, but I just feel like it's maybe the next right question though, too. And then for everybody to understand too, of like, do you think about another, and does it come with any sense of like triggering again? Or do you feel like, oh, because I went through this and kind of figured out a plan, feel a little more secure in the next time around, if there is a next time around?
I mean, honestly, all the things.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I feel like I feel so satisfied now.
Yeah.
And I'm 38. I'm going to be
Yeah.
39. I had to put a lot of my life on hold to get through this journey. So I'm not sure if I
Yeah.
want to have another child.
Yeah. And I think that's really valid,
Yeah, because I
mean,
have a lot of stuff to do that I
Yeah.
didn't get to make my priority, on top of having a baby, which is obviously,
Yeah.
and then I do feel like, I feel like I would feel probably all the things. I think there's parts of me that would probably allow myself to feel a lot more connected to this baby if I had a second one.
Yeah.
I didn't understand. I had a hard time with that the first time. And now that
I
I
think because there's such a disconnect though, I think that's the
Yeah.
trauma. I really think that's
Oh,
exactly what it is. It's like, you can't connect because you're like, but what if it gets taken from me? This hasn't ever worked out for me. And so even though I'm pregnant now after 4 years, like it's almost like a resistance to connect because it's freaking scary.
Yeah.
The idea of loss is scary. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that I wouldn't be able to do that this time because I know how that feels. So I
Yeah.
would feel so much more connected because it's like, oh, it's a baby, it's my baby,
Yeah.
But I think I would probably feel,
All
I
the
don't feel
force.
ready. I don't feel ready yet,
Yeah. And you still have plenty of time, and those decisions I think come when they come, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I do have another embryo, so
yeah.
I'm not sure. I think about it like every day though, and I really don't have the answer yet. I don't have the answer yet, but we'll see.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
When you'll know. But right now it's like enjoying these moments with your baby, and your epic spit up episode this morning that you were telling me about before we recorded.
Oh yeah. Exorcist style. That's what I called it. Full change of clothes, full change of couch cushion, cover, pillows,
God.
the whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love it.
She
And
was fine.
what was that? She was fine.
Yeah, she was like,
And
yeah.
also too, I think the other thing to speak of too is like your pregnancy was pretty uneventful. minus emotional, which is not, not small at all, but health wise, and your recovery has been great, and you've been breastfeeding and feeling really strong there too. So I do think too, all the things you did leading up to obviously create like, 3 genetically normals, of like sending off 3 and getting all 3 back. It's like the odds are amazing on that.
Yeah.
But all that prep work in the lead up is showing itself now too, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really think that like what I learned with you and with Heather and all the programs, it created this foundation that is kind of lifelong,
Yeah.
and really was so physically, also emotionally, but really physically supportive during, IVF was actually relatively easy and
It
smooth,
was.
surprisingly, which you don't hear people say a lot, but for me, that was kind of the least of it. The trying and it not happening was way harder than finally kind of just going through it. And it was successful. So
Yeah. Well, and I think though too, of like why I mean, having been on the other side of this for, 2 decades and like seeing all sorts of, IVF processes for all sorts of different women. It's like, just think you were really prepared emotionally. I think you were really prepared physically. Like you were like, okay, I've actually done everything I can possibly do. And so there was this piece, and then finding the doctor that felt connected to you, it was all of that. Like you always maintained such a level of connection. Like that was just always so important to you. So it was just like, I think you just pulled in the right team, and then, and you trusted your doctor. You did, you went with it, and it was like, okay, let's do
yeah,
this.
I did. I didn't fight it. And she also listened to me too. I felt really heard. And that's one thing I will say for anyone who's considering trying IVF or IUI, is to really find the person that you feel good with, because it's so important. There's a lot of different types of doctors out there. So make sure that you find somebody that you feel like hears you, listens to you,
Yes.
respects you.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. And any, I don't know, words of wisdom for the women that are still on the other side?
Yeah, if you want to be a mom, you'll be a mom.
Yeah.
However, hell or high water, however you get there, if that's really, you will get there. You will be a mom. There's so many souls waiting to come in. There's so many souls here. There's so many, that connection it never goes away, and you'll get there. And don't let anybody tell you that you won't, because you will.
That's right.
Yeah.
Hope, right?
Yeah.
Hope and perseverance. I mean, I think perseverance kind of sometimes more than hope, right? Because there were days where hope
Yeah, it wasn't there.
annoying.
Yeah. And just being open to, looking at any type of resistance or trying different things, and, just listening to yourself.
Love it. Yeah, it was a fun ride. I mean, I'm glad you're to the other side,
Yeah, me too. Totally worth it though.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm like, oh, okay. That was what life handed me, and here we are,
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Ashley, for sharing.
Oh,
I
thank you.
know, yeah, everyone's gonna eat this one up. So if you guys have any questions when we post this, just comment and I'll come through and answer to the best of my knowledge. If I need to ask Ashley questions, I'll bring them to her, and
Yeah.
we'll get your questions answered.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mama. I'm so happy for you.
Thank
and
you.
for your little nugget. And thank you to all of you. I hope this just inspires you on any level whatsoever.